Welcome to our Wellness Wednesday Health Show. I'm your host, Dr. Kala Hewlett from the Back Pain and Joint Center of Texas. We offer non-surgical solutions for your chronic back and joint pain. And we're still in the middle of International Overdose Awareness Month. Still to this day, overdose continues to be a huge health crisis that very few people are talking about. In fact, if you are listening to this or watching this right now when you're under the age of 50, or you have a son or a daughter or a brother or a sister or anyone you care about who's under the age of 50, overdose is the number one cause of death for adults in this country right now. More than cancer, more than heart disease, more than car accidents, more than gun violence, it's overdose. And so our goal this month is to do three things. Number one, to raise awareness of this health crisis. Number two, to remember those that have lost their lives to overdose. And number three, this is a time to act, to be able to prevent further overdoses from happening and be able to make a change here in our community and our state and our great nation. And today we have two very special guests from MCOPE, which is Montgomery County Overdose Prevention Endeavor. And so I want to welcome Kathy and Sarah to the show today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Now we're going to get into what MCOPE is in a few moments, but I know both of you have a very personal story with overdose, and maybe we can start there.
Sure. My name is Sarah Hall. I'm one of the directors of MCOPE, and my journey started on August 24th, 2020, and that's the day I lost my son, Ethan. Ethan was a great kid, worked at HEB, went to school full-time at both Lone Star College and Houston Community for music production, lived at home with us, great family life, ate dinner together every night. No signs of anything going on with Ethan for us to know what was happening. When we started going to a grief group by the name of GRASP, I met Kathy, and we were coming up on last year's International Overdose Awareness Day, which is August 31st, and we were talking about doing something more that we could do to help honor the children that we've lost and really bring awareness to the county and the public on what's happening out there. So we started planning this event that we'll talk about later on. But back to my story with Ethan, really, I just wish I had been more aware of what was happening. I was not, and certainly his friends weren't going to tell me, and other people weren't going to tell me. But part of the investigation that the detectives did found that a neighbor had been selling Ethan pills, pain pills, for the previous 18 months, along with the other kids in the neighborhood, and that was something that I certainly was not aware of. But it's this time of year really hits home and hits hard, and I would really like to do all that we can to prevent this from ever happening to anyone again.
Looking back,
Mm-hmm.
If you were to go back 2 years, and if you could do things a little different, or if there was somebody that was in a similar position as you right now, if you were talking to another mother, what lesson, I wouldn't even say a lesson learned, but what would you say, gosh, and I hate to play the coulda, shoulda, woulda day.
Follow your gut instincts. If something doesn't feel right, follow it, because chances are your gut is right. In my case, my son was 22 years old, so it's not like you can take his phone and go through his phone, but boy, that would have been very telling on what was happening. And kind of his friends and who he's hanging out with. That also. Now, I wasn't aware of all the extracurricular activities, of course, until afterwards. But, certainly, this is my son, Ethan. This is his graduation picture.
It's a good-looking young man.
Very handsome. And this is also Ethan. This is Ethan the performer. Ethan liked to do hip-hop. That environment, and the detectives told me this, and at first I really bristled against it, but that environment certainly breeds and is very conducive to another lifestyle. And another thing I've found is this generation has this, it can't touch me. It may happen to other people, but it's not going to happen to me. And that's a big part of the awareness, I think, that needs to be brought forward, because one pill can kill you. It just takes one.
Sometimes the youthfulness of, and perhaps when we were that age, we all had that sense of invisibility. But drugs today are not what they were.
Are not what
20,
they were
30
back
years
then.
ago.
No, it's a completely different situation, and that's what people need to be aware of.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
Kathy?
Hi, my name is Kathy, and I lost my son Josh. It was May 2nd of 2017. I get very emotional when I'm talking about him. But my son, it was a little bit different story than Sarah's. He had a substance use disorder. He went through many, many treatments, but it started, he was a varsity swimmer, and he was also a year-round swimmer with Twist. And so he never really had a lot of time with his friends and for social life. And so he decided his junior year that he didn't want to swim anymore, that he wanted to be able to enjoy his friends and do other things. And so he quit right before Christmas of that junior year. New Year's Eve, he went to a party, and that's where he discovered alcohol and pot. And, he came back drunk and everything, and we just decided that, we needed to do something about it. But we did what I think most parents would do at that point. We went through his phone. We took his phone away. We took his car away. We grounded him, all of those things, because we didn't want him to be using pot and drinking, but you just can't sit on your child. They still have to go to school. And so it continued, and we just tried our best to stay on top of it, which of course you just can't do with kids. He eventually, we found out a couple years later that he was actually stealing pills, Xanax, pain prescriptions and stuff from his friends' medicine chests. And that's kind of how he got hooked on the pills. This continued, and around his sophomore year in college, we discovered it was really a major problem. And he did tell us that he knew he had a problem with the drugs. So we did send him to an IOP. Eventually we realized that he needed to have the in-resident. And his story kind of began there, and he went through about 12 different treatment centers, about the same amount of sober living, and he actually experienced about 12 overdoses before his fatal one. In fact, he had one about 3 days, I believe it was, before the fatal one. So he passed away with heroin and meth in his system. And he was a great kid. He was very smart, intelligent, just loved to laugh and make other people laugh. And he was a good friend to people, but he just kind of went down that pathway. And I wish that I had also known a little bit more about, different signs. Looking back, I see a lot of the signs, of how tired he always was, or just, being secretive and things like that. And I could just tell when he was talking to me, when he was in college, when he was talking to me and stuff, I could just kind of see there was something about his personality that had really changed. So, but I just didn't pick up on it because I was one of those moms that said, never my child. This isn't going to happen to me. He's a good kid. He was raised right. He was raised in church. We were, a two-parent family that also ate at home, all together and everything else. And so how could that happen to us? And it did. So that's why about 2 years after he passed away, I started a chapter of GRASP, which is grief recovery after substance passing. And that's where I met Sarah, and we started from there with MCO.
Thank you both for sharing that. As I hear that, gosh, it's just as a parent myself, it's a heartbreaking story, right? Because you love your children, right? And some of the hardest things that we go through in life is those that we love that are close to us and decisions that they make. And that's, again, why we're doing this. It's nobody wakes up, or no one's in third grade saying, hey, I want to overdose when I'm in my teenage or early 20s, right? They have dreams, they have aspirations, they want to be firefighters and astronauts and musicians and all these wonderful things. And we want, as parents, we want to love them and support them. And ignorance is, I think, one of the most detrimental things when it comes to this, because you just don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So that's why I'm so grateful that you guys have started MCOPE, just to bring awareness, because it can happen to any single one. I know at our walk this past weekend, some people may be familiar with the Woodlands High School. Two of the children there had overdosed just before graduation. The parents were out there this weekend, so it hits home. And unfortunately, your stories are not unique. I know you've encountered probably hundreds and hundreds of parents that have gone through something very similar. And so let's talk a little more about MCOPE. So what is MCOPE? You guys came together and started forming that, and let's talk about MCOPE and then the event that's going to be happening in a couple weeks.
Well, MCOPE was started by 4 moms who lost their sons to overdose. We all met at GRASP. And like Sarah said earlier, that we just wanted to do something to recognize International Overdose Awareness Day. That's been a day for 21 years now. And it's actually something where it's marked in countries all over the world. And so we wanted to do something that could bring a little bit more awareness to the communities. So our 4 pillars are, education, prevention, awareness, and remembrance. And so we try to hit all 4 of those in the event that we're having, so that we can remember those that have been lost, but also to make the community aware. I think in too many communities, people just don't want to believe that it's a problem. And something I learned very quickly from my son was that heroin is huge in the Woodlands. And I mean, my son went to the Woodlands High School, and that was not something I would ever have thought. And he said, oh yeah, it's very common there. And I'm still hearing that now from parents. So we just really wanted to make sure that people understood that, and that there are some things to look for, some signs, but also to not basically bury your head in the sand, that this can happen to anybody. So that's where it kind of began.
And then with the event coming up, it's going to be on the 28th, right? I believe Sunday, August 28th, which is just, really a week or so away from now. And who are some of the special guest speakers that we'll hear from that day?
I'll let Sarah answer that, because she's been handling all this.
We have a really great lineup this year. We have Governor Greg Abbott, who will be here speaking at our event, and he has been great to us as far as helping us. He has declared August 31st as Overdose Awareness Day for the state of Texas. This is the 2nd year in a row he has done that for us, and we will have the plaque at the event for people to see as well. He really listens to us as far as what we're saying too, and we wanted to have laws changed as far as prosecution against fentanyl, which is the number 1 problem we're seeing right now as far as overdoses go. We're also going to have James Campbell, who's the chief of Montgomery County, the emergency department. He will be there talking about first responders and probably one of the most important things, Narcan, and Narcan use with first responders for an overdose. We will also have Danny Looney there. He is the director and founder of Rock Bottom Hope. He has an amazing, very inspirational story that we wanted everyone to hear. We will have Dr. Crystal Collier. She will be speaking on grief in the family after a substance use passing. And we will also have Chris Crawford, who is with LifeSpring Behavioral. He is there to talk about conflict within the family when you have someone that is involved in active addiction. And we will also have Dr. Joy Alonzo on hand. She is from Texas A&M. She is the head of the Texas Opioid Awareness Coalition. She's in charge of all of the Narcan distribution and so forth for Texas A&M. She is very much involved in all of the drug awareness events. You see her on TV a lot. She will be doing our Narcan training, and so we're really looking forward to having her there. She's a very dynamic speaker.
You have quite the lineup, and I'm very impressed. It just speaks volumes to the passion and the energy and the effort that you're putting into this event with so many wonderful people to come speak that day, including our governor. Now, it's going to be August 28th, location?
is going to be at the Woodlands Methodist Church, 9201 Grogan's Mill.
It's the big church between the mall and Whole Foods, if you're familiar with that area.
Yes, and it will be in the Loft building, the Loft Sanctuary.
Okay, perfect. We'll put links below so that way you can just click, you can get all the info about the event. We'll also put a link to MCOPE. That way, if different people want to connect directly with you. You know, one thing that we've learned is on this road of addiction and overdose, there are so many different points of intersection that someone can help on, whether it's preventing it in the first place through awareness, or whether someone is in the early stages of addiction and need help, or whether in the latter stages, or whether someone's lost a loved one. There are just so many different individuals on that road to help. And so I love that you've assembled this group to be able to come together and offer support and offer help.
Thank you. I think I just wanted to say too, is along with the remembrance, is that we will have a Texas Memorial Walkway. And that is showing 125 pictures of people that have been lost in Texas to overdose or a drug or alcohol related passing. And it's heartbreaking, really, because you're seeing these beautiful, just beautiful pictures, and seeing a little story or a little snippet that their loved one has sent in about them. And it's heartbreaking. The thing that was hardest for me putting this together was that the youngest person on there is 14 years old, and the oldest, I think, is about 65. But the average age this year on our walkway is 23 years old. There are so many that are 17, 18 years old. They hadn't even graduated high school yet. And that kind of goes back to what Sarah was saying about the one pill, because those were a lot of the fentanyl poisonings, where they've taken half a pill or one pill to try it out, and they didn't wake up the next morning. So the memorial is just a beautiful showing of just these wonderful people, wonderful kids.
Yeah. Thank you all for putting that together, and we look forward. We're going to be there that day as well, and we're going to share it with our patients and our community, and we hope that this can be even bigger and better than last year, just to create more, I call it positive ripples, because yes, the more that we can create awareness, right, remembrance and action, we can turn these lives around and save some lives. As far as in Texas, we shared a few numbers earlier, but in Texas it's about 4,000 Texans that die every year. To put that into perspective, imagine if January of this year, 3 full passenger planes in Texas fell out of the sky and crashed. You may think, okay, is it safe to fly? Should I get on a plane? And okay, there was only 3 planes. And then in February, another 3 planes fell out of the sky. And in March, another 3. And in April, another 3. They'd probably ground airplanes. We probably wouldn't be flying, right? There'd be big investigations. Why is this happening? But that's the equivalent of what we're seeing. We're seeing every month, 3 full passenger planes of people dying from overdose. And again, very few people are talking about it as far as in major media. This really, I've learned, is more of a grassroots effort. And so we're gonna, through social media, through word of mouth, through community networks, we're gonna help spread this as much as we can.
Make people aware, yes.
So thank you guys again for being here. Thank you for the work you do. And my heart goes out to you and the work you're doing, and for the loss of your children. I know it's a lot of hope, faith, and trust that gets us through these days. So again, thank you for doing what you both do.
Thank you for having us.
As always, we wish you guys the absolute best in health and wellness. Please mark your calendars. Sunday, August 28th, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., Woodlands Methodist Church. No need to register, no need to purchase tickets. This is a free event for the community. Please come, and what you learn that day may just save the life of you or your loved one. Until then, y'all be well.